Hello, Happy New Year. At least it's for those in Europe and in Nigeria, probably Happy New Year. Well, I'm in US right now, so it's not yet New Year. But for LeetCode, it's already New Year. So this 2025, I want to be more like consistent with my LeetCode of the day. And so I'll just be going over the an easy LeetCode problem for the day today, which is maximum score after splitting the string, right? So I'm just gonna go over the problem statement and we'll try to find like a solution to it, right? So given a string S of zeros and ones, return the maximum score after splitting the string into two non-empty substring, that is left substring and right substring. The score after splitting a string is the number of zeros in the left substring plus the number of ones in the right substring. So if I understand, we're trying to find the maximum score, right? And the maximum score, the score is you split a string into two substrings, right? And then you sum the number of zeros in the left substring with the number of ones on the right substring, and then you want to get the maximum of that. So that would be the maximum score. So for example, if we look at example one, for example, we have 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, right? So the different ways we can split this is, let me use this. So we can do 0 and have 1, 1, 1, 0, 1 here, right? Or we can have 0, 1 and have 1, 1, 0, 1 here. Or we can have 0, 1, 1 and have 1, 0, 1 here. Or 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1. Or 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1. And we can't have 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1 here, an empty string here, because the total that we have to split into two non-empty substrings. So that's important, right? So that means these are the only options we can have, right? And so to find the score of each of them, the score of each of them will be the number of zeros on this left one plus the number of ones on this right one. So yeah, that will be number of 0, 1 plus number of right on the number of ones on the right substring will be 4. So that's 5, right? The score for this split will be number of zeros, that's 1, plus number of ones on the right substring, that'll be 3, so that's 4, right? The score here will be number of zeros, which is still 1, right? And the number of ones, which will be on the right substring is 2, so that's 3, right? The score for the split is number of zeros on the left substring, which is 1, and the number of 1 on the right substring, which is 1, right? And then for this last split, the score will be number of zeros on the left substring, which is 2, plus number of ones on the right substring, which is 1, right? And that'll give me 3. So yeah, this would be the maximum score, and that's why we should return that. And that's why, yeah, we have the output should be 5, right? So I feel like the question is pretty like we understand the question. So the next step would be to kind of like find a solution for this and implementation for this. So first of all, just do what I just did right now, that would be the brute force, and we can do that, right? So in the brute force, we just try each split, and then when we split, we count the number of zeros on the left substring and count the number of ones on the right substring, and then sum it up, and then we can keep a variable called like score, which would be the maximum score we've seen so far. So in this case, from this first split, we'll have 5, and then we'll never find something greater than 5. But if in the case that we find something greater than 5, it's gonna we're going to replace the score with the maximum one that we've seen so far, right? So that's the first approach we can take, and with that approach, the time complexity is going to be n squared, because each split, the amount of split we can have is n, right? Depends on the length of our string, and for each split, we're going to loop through this. For each, we're going to loop through the string, which is another n. So that makes the time complexity n squared. And this is pretty good, but we can do better than this, because if you notice, right, we don't need to loop through loop through the string in each split, because we can find a better way to calculate the number of zeros in the left string and the number of ones on the right substring, right? So what we can do is we can keep, so we said we're gonna have a variable called score, right? We can also keep a variable called ones, right? And these ones will represent the number of, no, not variables, let's say variable called zeros, right? And these zeros will be the number of zeros on the left substring. So at first, we can start with 0, right? And then when we do the first split, because remember, we're going to loop through the array for each split, right? So when we get here, we increase 0 to 1. So now we have our 0 is 1, right? Then when we get here, we have 0 is still 1 because this is 1. When we get here, we have 0 is still 1. Yeah, 0 is still 1. Then yeah, 0 becomes 2. And then yeah, 0 becomes 0 still remain 2, right? So that way, while looping through the different splits, we can count the zeros on our left substring, right? And we realize that to calculate the ones on the right substring, right, we have to check the sum of the ones, and we have to loop through, and that will still make it n squared. So that doesn't really help. But what we can do is the ones on the left is equals to the total amount of ones that we have minus the ones. So the ones on the right is equals to the total amount of ones minus the ones on the left, right? That's because the ones here would be the total amount of ones. For example, in this case, the total amount of ones we have is 4, right? And there's one on the left. So we know that there are 3 ones on the right. And since we're looping through from left to right, we can easily calculate the amount of ones on the left, right? So in that way, that means we can keep another variable called ones, right? Which starts from 0. And then while we're looping through this different splits, like while we're looping through the string, we can easily find the amount of ones and the amount of total. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's assume our string is 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, right? So we'll look through first to find the total number of ones. So let's say ones total, right? And now I find out that total ones total is 4, right? So I start my iteration from here, right? So from the first one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if is this 0. If this is 0, then yeah, I will increase my zeros to 1, and my ones will just remain the same, right? And my ones total is 4. That doesn't change. That's constant. So then I can find my score, right? How do I find my score? My score will be equals to my score will be so my score is zeros, right? Because zeros is the zeros of the left plus now ones of the right is ones total minus ones right minus ones left, right? Because remember, ones total minus ones left is equals to ones right, and our scores was meant to be zeros of left plus ones of right, and ones of right is equals to ones total minus ones left. So that way we can find we have this ones here is ones left, this zero here is zeros left. So yeah, we can find the score using zeros left and ones left, and because we know the ones total, right? So yeah, our score will be zeros 1 plus ones total plus 4, that's 5, minus 1 left, 0. So now we find out our score is 5, which is correct, right? But we have to keep going to see if we can find a better score. So yeah, we check, is this 0? No, this is 1. So we increase our zeros remain, but we increase our ones to 1, right? We increase it by 1, and now our score become that would be zeros 1 plus total 4 minus 1, right? 5 minus 1. So we find out that our score is 4, right? So we keep doing that, right? And we'll mostly reduce that time efficiency to like n, right? But in this case 2n, because we're doing two we're iterating through the string twice, right? So can we do better? Can we try and make it n, just one pass over the string and not two passes over the string? Yeah, there's a way we can do it. The way we can do it is that while we're checking our maximum score, right, we're using this ones total, but this ones total is constant for everything, right? So we can just remove it from this formula. Yeah, we can just cancel this out because it's gonna the maximum of zeros left plus ones total minus ones left will still be the same thing as the maximum from zeros left minus ones left because ones total will be positive and is constant for everything. So we can just use this to find the maximum score, right? And then after finding the maximum score, we now add one total to it. But the good thing about this is that we can easily find one total because by that time we've looped through everything and we're here, and now we already know the amount of ones in our string. So in that case, we don't have to do two passes first to find the amount of one, the count of ones, and then the second pass to find to iterate. So I hope that makes sense. But I can go through to explain what I'm talking about just so we're not going to have ones total again. So we're just going to have zeros left and zeros and ones, right? Which is for the left, right? And then this is what we're going to do. For the score, we're just going to use zeros minus ones. So we're going to go like this, right? So first of all, we start with zeros being zero, ones being, we initialize zeros and ones to zero, right? And then when we do the first split, zeros become one, ones become zero. So when we subtract, that'll be one minus zero, so that's one. We go to the next one, zeros remain one, ones becomes one. We subtract one minus one, that's zero, right? Remember our score is zeros minus ones. Then we go to the next one, right? Let me use red to split them. So yeah. So we go through the next one. Our zeros doesn't change because there's a one. So zeros is one. Our ones now is two, right? We subtract one minus two, so that's negative one. Right? We keep going. Our zeros doesn't change. Our ones becomes three. So now we have negative two. Yeah, our zeros become two and our ones become two. So no, our ones doesn't change, so it's three. So that would be two minus three, so that's negative one. And yeah, our zeros doesn't change, that's two. And our ones increases, right? That's four. Actually, we're not going to add this split, right? Because remember, we cannot have a split where everything is here, and so we're not going to add it. We're going to stop here, right? And then use this to find the maximum score. So from here, we see that the maximum score is one, right? Maximum score is one. But then how do we get five? We get five by adding the total number of ones. So how do we add the total number of ones? That's when we do a last iteration to add one in case this last one is a one. If this is a zero, then we already found the number of ones, right? Which will just be three. But if it is one, then we add one to the number of ones to get the total number of ones. Then now we now add that total number of ones to the maximum score four, and that gives us like the solution. I hope that makes sense. And without taking much time, I'm just gonna go to LeetCode to try and like implement that. So just to just so that we have something to guide us, I'm gonna write like a pseudo code. So like I said, we're going to iterate variables, right? We need variable for ones, right? We need a variable for initialize and iterate. Uh, initialize, not iterate in it, not iterate. So we're going to initialize variable for ones, declare and initialize variable for zeros, and then also yeah, those are the two things. Okay, we also need for score, right? To keep track of the score. So initialize variable for score. And just for the score, we have to make it negative infinity because as we say, the score can become negative, right? So we want to make it the smallest it can ever be, so negative infinity. But for ones and zeros, we're gonna make them initialize them to zero. So let me just make this better. So then the next thing is to loop through the split. Loop through the split. And for the splits, where do you want to start from? We want to start from so we're just gonna loop through S, right? Right. But where do we want to stop though? We want to stop at want to stop at the index before the last one, right? So that's where we want to stop. So in this case, for 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, we want to stop at 0. Because if we include this one, then we'll be breaking the requirement that says non-empty substring, because right substring will be empty, right? So we'll stop for that. We'll stop in the index before the last one so that we fulfill that requirement. And then what we're going to do in the loop is if the current character, right? If the current character is 1, then we increase count of 1, right? If same thing, so if current character is 0, then just increase the zeros. Then just increase the zeros, right? And then want to calculate the score. So calculate current maximum score, right? So calculate current maximum score by subtracting with the formula just call from that. So the formula is zeros minus ones, right? So we do zeros minus ones. So that's how we calculate the current maximum score. So by the time we leave here, we already know the maximum score without the total number of ones. So what we do is, like I said, which is very important, we have to check the last index. So if the character at last index is 1, right? Then increase ones so that now we have a total number of ones, right? And then return our total score, which just be return the score that we found plus the ones. So yeah, I think how that video could make sense. And I think everything is the logic is correct. So now I'm just gonna try and like turn it into like real Python code. So we have ones equals to 0. We have zeros equals to 0. We have score equals to negative infinity, right? And we're looping. So for a range length of s minus 1. So let's think about this, right? So length of s minus length of s here is 6, right? So 6 minus 1 is 5. And due to, because of Python, right? If we do range in 5, it's gonna go to 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's perfect, right? So that's good. So so if the current character is 1, so if s of I is equals to 1, then increase 1, right? And if it's 0, if you can just use else, right? Because it's either 0 or 1, right? So else is zeros is equals to 1, and then we calculate our score. So score is the maximum of the current score we have right now, or the maximum of the maximum score we found before, or the current one, if the current one is bigger, So that's the logic here. And then if s of -1, s of -1 will give us the last one. If that's equals to 1, then want to increase the ones too. And then want to return score plus ones. Yes, I think that should be good. So we can just try it on the test cases they provided to us to see if that's correct. No, okay, I forgot. I forgot my semicolon. So yeah, that works for the test cases that it gave us. So I'll try and submit and see. Okay, that's good. I hope this is useful. And basically, the reason why I'm doing this video is just for myself, um, for me to be better at explaining like problems and my solution, and just be better at this coding, and also to keep me consistent. But I hope anyone out there that it helps, hope it helps somebody out there. So yeah, thank you. To you tomorrow.